Greetings, fantastic fixers. It is I, Mark from Mark Fixes Stuff, and by my dishevelment you can probably tell that this is a video I wasn't intending to make. However, as I was sorting out this filming area here where I could set up the laser cutter on this very table, I came across a box which contains this beautiful Atari 800. As you can see, I've found some of the cards that go in the bay. In fact, I found too many cards to go in the bay. Also got a cartridge. So there is a problem with this insofar as it's got a missing key. And as you can see, that's a problem because the contacts are exposed, so that bothers me. So I was thinking what we're going to do is we're going to knock up a temporary key whilst I source an original one to cover the hole and protect those contacts. We'll also hook it up and see if it works, and we're going to do that right now.
Mark Fixes Stuff. This video is sponsored by PCBWAY. You can get an instant quote on a variety of services, or browse a library of talented makers' designs, add them to your cart, and have them delivered directly to your door.
It's actually incredible to think that when this was released, the advert that they used in the UK thought ahead to a retro computer museum.
And I'm sure you recognize the Atari home computer, circa 1980s. Quite revolutionary, of course. For learning languages, playing games, composing music, writing your own programs. Father would come home from the office and we'd spend hours in front of our Atari home computer. Questions?
Please, sir. What's an office?
Atari home computers you'll feel at home with.
Not only did they nail RMC's dress sense and hairstyle, but they also hinted at the idea of home working and the end of the office, which was incredible considering it was the 1980s. So I have two of these, which are both OS cards and, well, they appear to be the same. I also have far too much RAM. We can add up to 3 optional RAM cards inside the system, and I seem to have 4 cards. First world problems, I guess. Yep, 64K of RAM. I've got a Galaxian computer game cartridge which I've never ever played. And opening up its flap, we can see there's a Donkey Kong cartridge. Hooray! I'm terrible at Donkey Kong. In real life, I never saw anything in the right cartridge slot. These cartridges are ridiculously over-engineered, which is something I'm here for all day. So, having spread my bits all over the table, it's time to see if we can install them and indeed if this machine works. For that, we need to go into the belly of the beast. The 4 expansion slots are hidden underneath the cover on the top of the machine, and to remove it on the early machines you need to undo these screws that go straight into the aluminium. I'm not sure if I need to remove them entirely, so I'll just leave them loose for now. Apparently on newer machines there's a plastic clip or toggle system. I've never seen that though. And that should be just enough so that we can lift up the expansion slot cover. As we lift the cover, we pull it forward to disengage the 2 clips that go into the main body of the computer. The expansion cards all go in here. From this overhead view we can see that there are 4 slots. There are also 2 cartridge slots, the DOM one, I guess the sub one. I've only seen the sub one used though. Life imitates art that way. Now with the 4 slots you might be confused what to put in there, but luckily those lovely people at Atari have given us a diagram on the front of the OS card, going all the way from 8K to 48K, and we're going to go for 48K. We'll install this ROM card and then 3 of the 16K boards that we've got over here on the desk. We don't need this OS card, it's surplus to requirements. The ROM cart goes in, well, fairly easily, and it just pushes home. Then we put in one of the 16K cards. And you guessed it, another 16K card. And a final 16K card, which will bring us up to 48K of memory in our Atari 800. Nothing left to do now but put the lid back on.
As we put it on, we need to observe these two little holes. These are what stop us putting the lid on easily. If we look at the underside of the expansion cover, we can see that there are two tabs on this aluminium plate, and those will need to mate in the two holes on the computer. So we need to kind of put it on, slide it back, and then pop it into place. And at this point, some of you more experienced Atarians will be screaming at me that I should have removed these screws in the first place. Well, you live and you learn. They were definitely getting in the way, and I didn't want to force the cover. Let's try again. With the screws removed, it's an absolute doddle to clip the cover into place. Lovely. Now we just need to replace those screws. With these going into aluminium, I back them off until I find the thread, and then I thread them in manually with my fingers. I really don't want to fight against the aluminium here, and I want them to go into the original thread. Just a light twist of the screwdriver until it cams out tells me that they're in place. I'm always impressed by the incredible level of materials and engineering used in these early Atari machines. Okay, with the cover back in place, I think we should test it. But I've just realised that there's a problem. You see, this Atari has come from the good old US of A, and that means that its power supply is 110 volts. Bum. We can't just plug 110 volts straight into the UK power supply, because it will melt the transformer. Luckily, we have a cunning plan in the form of this step-down transformer. A step-down transformer will take the UK's 230 volts and step it down to 110 volts that our Atari PSU will require. It's not the most energy efficient solution, but it's all we've got at the moment. Let's get this set up. As usual, we're going to be using a cable from Retro Computer Shack. They really do make excellent cables, so thanks to Ian for this one. It simply fits into the DIN connector on the side of the computer. This cable only provides a composite output, so I'm not really expecting the best video signal, but it should be enough for us to test and play some games. After all, I've only plugged it into a crappy consumer grade LCD TV anyway. Looking back at our step-down transformer, it's got an IEC power connector on the back. I also notice it's got a 220 volt or a 110 volt switch. I suppose that means that it could also be a step-up transformer if you needed it in the USA. Light is green, trap is clean. Let's turn that off for safety's sake. Time to take our power adapter out of its box. Oh dear God, it's brand new. Oh, I actually feel wrong even taking this out of the cardboard. And at this point, I'd like to thank Errata for this very generous donation of the Atari 800, the cards, the game cartridges, and this box fresh power adapter. Wow. This really does hark to a bygone era where no expense was spared, and I'm going to have to take this cable tie off. Looking at the bottom, it answers the question that some of you will no doubt have in your minds. Why don't you just use another power supply? Well, this outputs 9 volts AC alternating current, and AC output adapters aren't as easy to come by as their DC equivalents, and I certainly don't have one lying around. It's time to make the beast with two backs and get this set up. Going into the 110 volt socket. And I've committed the ultimate sin of taking the cable tie off of this side of the power adapter, just so I can route it behind our Atari 800 and plug it in. I'm actually feeling a little bit nervous now. We pop the power on our step up, step down transformer, and then having turned the TV on already, we turn on the power on our Atari 800. And nothing happens. Which is a bit disconcerting to say the least. I really thought this machine would work. It's at this point that Terry and Dave point out that I may have made a schoolboy error. I might not have put the LCD TV into the correct mode. With barely concealed trepidation, I flick through the options. including Beauty and the Beast on DVD that's still jammed in the drive, until I get to AV1, and all of a sudden we have MemoPad, and I can barely contain my excitement. With no cartridge in the left-hand slot, the computer only launches into MemoPad, but that is enough for us to test the keys, including that 8 key that's exposed. And with that working, I want to test the RAM cards that we've just installed in our Atari. For that, we're going to quickly whip up an Atari SuperSalt Diagnostic cartridge. This is a reproduction of the actual diagnostic cartridges that they would have used in the very late 70s and early 80s when this computer was current. I've made a video on how to build one of these previously, right down to how to program the EEPROM. So if you're interested, look for the link in the description box below. It's a very simple build though, requiring only an EEPROM, a small piece of 74 series logic, and a single ceramic capacitor. Sometimes you just need an excuse to use those sexy close-up soldering shots. How can you not love that? Some of the Atari 8-bit computers actually do have built-in limited diagnostics, but the SuperSalt can work even if the Atari is really quite broken. And there we have it, our SuperSalt diagnostic cartridge, ready to test our RAM. Although as I approach the machine, I start to get a sneaking feeling that I may have made another one of my schoolboy errors. Oh, there it is, and the problem is that this key needs to go into this slot to activate a micro switch and turn the power on for the computer. Bum. Luckily, with my red spudger in hand, I am the keymaster. The destructor is coming. Goes the traveller, the destroyer. Either that or the SuperSalt cartridge will boot, one of the two. It's the SuperSalt cartridge. Flicking my buttons until I get to the right option, I go into individual tests, select option, and then pressing R for RAM tests, we go into the RAM test. Shocker. But after 30 seconds we can see all of our RAM is okay. I also tested quite a lot of other stuff, but I'm not going to show that in this video because it's in the other video. Now I want to make a replacement key to stop the grit and grime getting into this key contact. Excuse the state of my carpet, but this is the Creality K1C printer, which they've kindly sent to the channel. And a good job too, because my CR6SE has just bit the dust. I'm not going to bore you with a massive unboxing. In fact, in the blurb, Creality say that you can get this printer unboxed and working in about 3 minutes. There is an asterisk that says that's under Creality's lab conditions. Under Markfix's stuff conditions, this doesn't prove to be the case. In fact, I go as far as to say that the 3-minute claim is like a shoemaker's convention, because it's a massive load of cobblers. Just peeling the stuff off of the printer took a good 5 minutes. Although I'm not going to lie and say that it wasn't incredibly satisfying. Because it was. There's plastic over everything. Goodbye environment. And hello more plastic. And once again we're confronted with the spectre of 110 versus 230 volts power supply, with a warning that we need to make sure we've set the power supply on the back to the right voltage before we power it on. No rush to check here though, because I fiddled for a full 5 minutes trying to get this connector with the tiny little cable into the back of the touchscreen. Once I had done it though, it was fairly simple to push it in and violently push it down into place. And that's close enough for jazz. More peeling ahoy. Whilst I was doing this, it occurred to me that this is probably a kink for some people. Maybe this is my new niche. Like ASMR, but for, well, tech enthusiasts. I wonder if the 3-minute claim includes finding the hex key out of the toolkit, finding the magnetic catch, finding the handle, finding the 2 screws, doing them up and making sure that it shuts. I'll bet it doesn't. And after the warning on the front panel, there is actually no 110-230 switch, just an on-off switch. Also in the manual it says that there's a filter that goes on the back of the printer, but I couldn't find it anywhere. There's also a rather lovely lid that reminds me of 1990s turntables. I quite like this. Two of the corners have magnets, so when you pop it on, it kind of pulls itself into place. The lid is intended to keep the temperature stable inside the machine. And with its hat on, let's flick the power on. Oh, that's kind of sexy. I select English because, well, I'm English and I don't really need to know any other languages. I'm told that there's 3 screws that I have to remove, so it's lights back on, I'm afraid. I didn't film taking all 3 of the screws out because it turns out they're a complete pain in the groat. Coming up to the half-hour mark, I'm at the point where I start to set up my network, select my time zone and bind myself to the cloud, which I'm not going to lie, sounds like a Kate Bush album. The printer then does a 9-minute self-check, which Carol Vorderman would tell you is 3 times 3 minutes, as in a lot more than 3 minutes. I guess there's lies, damn lies, and, well, advertising. Undeterred, at around the 45-minute mark, I let it do its main setup and watched as it kicked its lid off.
Keeps knocking the lid off.
That's what I said. And the best part is, after all that setup, it told me that it had a new firmware, which it then downloaded and made me go through the whole thing again, including knocking the lid off. I thought I'd done something wrong, so checked the forums. But no, it happens to everyone, to the point where some people have installed shims to raise the lid to stop this happening. And beggars belief, honestly it really does. Moving on, we've got some Hyper Series 3D printer filament. This is black and it's got carbon fibre in it. It's not red and there's no rocks in it. It's quite easy to load the filament. You just pop it up the chute at the rear and keep feeding it until you get a bit of resistance. We'll pop the lid off and then you can see that it goes all the way to the print head, which is a direct drive type, and you lock the lever back down. After this we press the extrude button on the printer. It will heat the nozzle and extrude some filament, which seems to make a small model of some seagull poop. Hooray, seagull poop! Will I ever stop winning? After about an hour we've set the printer up, which actually isn't bad in all fairness. Let's see if we can print something useful. And I'm happy to say that I found an Atari 800 keycap by Pluto63 on Thingiverse. Although I am learning 3D modelling, my current skills aren't great, so this is good news. I then thought that I found a problem with the camera built into the K1C printer. It was blurrier than a night in an Albrecht hotel. Luckily it was just a protective film that wasn't mentioned in any of the setup materials. Because this is a new printer, I thought I'd use the Creality Print app. It bears a striking resemblance to another app which I won't mention here. But it actually works, and works quite well, and integrates well with the K1C printer. I do love this preview camera, but I can't take my eyes off the Acorn Electron in the background because it's so pretty. This is the built-in camera, and this is a time-lapse from my own camera. This is actually printing in real time. And this obviously isn't. But the whole key was printed in carbon fibre in a little over 17 minutes, which really isn't bad at all. I basically did it in draft mode to see how quick we could produce the key. As some of you are likely aware, my wife lost her father recently, and one of the things he left was this incredibly wide-angle lens. I thought I'd use this shot as a tribute to Ian. Fare thee well, Ian. You are missed. For a draft mode print, this temporary keycap has come out pretty good. Sure, it doesn't need to be carbon fibre, but at least it makes it sparkly. And I did change the first layer direction so it wasn't running corner to corner. There's a bit of elephant footing, but other than that, I'm pretty pleased with this. It's not perfect, there's a bit of stringing, which we could knock off easily with a hot air gun. But it's really strong. As long as it fits, it will fit the purpose of protecting those contacts from the elements, whilst I'm in the process of hunting for an original key to make our Atari 800 complete. Lovely. Although it is a bit loose.
Temporary though it is, and as out of place as it looks, I'm really not too off-put by the look of it. It's certainly better than a gaping hole. Stop sniggering at the back. It's time to test some software. First up, I think we'll play a little bit of Donkey Kong. And there's only one controller we can choose, the iconic Atari joystick. I have to say at this point I was a bit put off because the video quality on Donkey Kong was really washed out and the reds in particular were quite weak. That did not stop me having fun, however. Playing Donkey Kong's a bit like riding a bike. You don't forget it. So much so, after about 20 years I played this version and I got straight to the top and rescued Pauline. At least I think it's Pauline. It was 20 years ago. You can barely see the score in the top right hand corner of the screen. And that's not the camera, that's what it's like in real life. Maybe I need to look into some kind of video mod for this computer. Well, our session of Donkey Kong is over. What can we try next? I know. Let's try that Galaxians. And when I fired up Galaxians, I was really surprised because the video on this was really clear and bright. I forgot to turn the camera on for the first session of this game and I did really well. Then I turned the camera on and everything went to pot. Typical. And then disaster struck in another way. Hey, so we interrupt this recording because basically I've made this entire video for nothing. I played some Donkey Kong. I played Galaxians, and then I thought I've got a couple more games, so I'll go and look for them. So I looked in the box that the Atari 800 was in, and they weren't there. So then I noticed one of them was on top of the box that the G7000 video pack was in. Because really I was looking for Star Raiders, which is the game I used to play with my cousin back when I was little. Yeah, I found a couple more cartridges. I also found, well, let me show you. I found sorry, I'm so flustered I can't remember what it's called, the Atari SIO SD. Move those out of the way. I've tried to remain keep the crime scene intact. I can't even speak. I found Star Raiders, which is an absolutely stonking game. I'm not sure what this one is. Defender, which, you know, I'm not sure. I can't remember what that's all right. But down here, let me just move it around. For God's sake. I don't know if you can see there. I can't really hold it up to the camera without it going out of focus. Okay, I'll just reach in and grab it. I'll just grab it. It's not like it's planned. That is the number 8 key off an Atari 800 computer. The hell? Days I spent making a temporary one, and I had people who were kind enough to say that they probably had a spare and they were going to send it to me. All that time I could be doing something else, and what I've done, that. Suppose at least it's complete. But I didn't stay sad for long because Defender was calling. I don't remember playing this version, but it's so good. And I don't care what anyone says. Although I'm crap at it, this joystick is one of the most responsive controllers ever.
But there was something playing on my mind. And it wasn't the fact that I was crap at Defender. It was something more deeply rooted. It also wasn't the fact that I couldn't remember how the hell to play Star Raiders. I really need to download the manual for this. No. It was that the keys on the keyboard really fall off super easily. And it's not just the 8 key. In this close-up we can see that pretty much every single one of the yellow plungers on this computer have shrunk and cracked with age. This is something I'm going to look into to see if I can remedy this problem going forward. I've had a lot of fun with this Atari 800. It's a stonking machine considering its vintage. Thanks for watching, and I'm sorry. Thanks also to my amazing patrons who are appearing on the screen right now. Although I'm an epic failure, perhaps you'll take pity on me and become a patron at patreon.com/MarkFixesStuff. Patrons get ad-free early access to all my videos, which is really nice considering the amount of ads that YouTube jam in there these days. Patrons also will gain the supernatural ability to astrally project wherever they want in the world. This might not be true. Thank you so much for watching. Perhaps you'd like to go and watch one of these other videos. They're probably not as fail-worthy as the others. Bye.